right, good morning. Come on in. There's a few people straggling in. All right, did everyone get caffeinated during tea time? Good, because I want this to be a very interactive session. So I'm Brian Sanderson. I'm a Surface Black Belt from Redmond. And this morning, I'm going to talk to you about our accessories. And we're really going to geek out. How many of you attended my session on Wednesday? All right, so most of you saw me talk about building Surface Pro 4 and Surface Book. Now we're really going to go into depth on the accessories. So today, I'm going to start out by giving you an inside look at the Microsoft Design and Fabrication Labs. This is a different video than the one I showed on Wednesday, so pay attention. It's really cool. Then I'll be introducing the type cover, and we're going to really geek out on some of the things about the type cover. And then I'm going to be talking about the pen, and finally the docking station. We have a session at the end for Q&A. If you have a really gnarly question that doesn't really fit into the flow, please wait till the end to ask the question. But if you have a question about what we're talking about at the time, go ahead and raise your hand, be interactive. And in fact, to encourage interactivity, I have a collection of goodies up here for people who ask questions. I'm also, at the end, going to be raffling a Surface Pro 4 type cover and a type cover with the fingerprint reader. So you can tell everyone we did bring the fingerprint reader to Australia. We just have a supply of one.
So likely to actually be stocked here now that they're popular in the States?
I would save that question. It's a very good question. On the left here, we have things like a shirt, wireless adapter, and sleeves for Surface Pro devices. On the right here, these sleeves and keyboard and the pen are for Surface 3. And then, of course, the t-shirt or the shirt is for anybody. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So Microsoft is very much committed to building hardware. We have made a long-term investment in our hardware business, and we've built a state-of-the-art fabrication and design lab in Redmond. It's a 100,000 square foot lab, and what this allows us to do is it allows our designers and our engineers to get together, have a meeting on one day, talk about a design idea that they have, and then the very next day have a physical model that's been built based on that idea. This allows them to iterate and iterate and iterate and seek perfection. All of our designers and all of our engineers, they are seeking perfection. Let me show you a little bit about that.
Microsoft is all in on making Surface one of the greatest hardware devices in the world.
This building allows us to design, build, and test, and iterate over and over and over again to reach perfect products.
8 separated labs that are now together under one massive roof.
The fidelity of the problem solving, it's at a different level.
As a hardware designer, my expectations were blown away.
It's that place where people come together to collaboratively design something. It's a 100,000 square foot building, and we've consumed the whole thing specifically for hardware labs.
CNC machines, laser cutting machines, water jet machines, a huge spray booth.
There's polyjet machines. These are all like rapid prototyping devices.
Down to the micron level of accuracy.
Having everything in one place is really incredible.
We'll see somebody working on a model that's totally different than what we're thinking of. It can inspire like a new creative way of doing it, and that happens all the time.
We had a meeting where we talked about a bunch of ideas. We're going to have the same meeting tomorrow, and we're going to look at the parts on the table. I haven't seen anything like it.
We seek perfection. That's the goal for Surface. Perfect products. Now, this building allows us to get closer and closer to perfect.
Now on Wednesday, I talked about Surface Pro 4 and Surface Book, and certainly those devices benefit from this lab exponentially. But the accessories also benefit. So today I'm going to talk about the type cover, I'm going to talk about the pen, and I'm going to talk about the docking station. Now, it's probably appropriate for me to talk about why the type cover is important and what we have to think about when we're designing the type cover. As you know, Surface Pro 4 is a tablet that can replace your laptop. So it's a tablet first. The type cover is what enables you to replace your laptop. So we need to build that type cover to match as closely as we can the experience of a laptop. So we've defined this word, lappability. Lappability is a measure of the comfort, confidence, and performance of your type cover, or of your overall experience. Obviously, comfort is important. It has to feel great on your lap. Confidence is also important. You don't want to feel like it's going to fall off. It can't be wobbly. It can't be feel like it might fall off at any point in time. It needs to be solidly on your lap. And you have to feel like you can actually get work done when you're using it. So those are the three things that we look at and we measure over and over and over again as we iterate on our designs. We even go into more detail. We look at all the different attributes of what makes a good laptop experience. Things like the display angle, the performance of the trackpad, the position on your legs, glare, display height, ergonomics, comfort, stability. All these things are all measured and iterated on. We have user experience designers that bring people in and ask them questions and measure these things over and over and over again. So let's talk a little bit about the new type cover then. All right, before we geek out and go into all the details, let's just look at the high-level changes in Surface, the new type cover. First, the most obvious change is that we've gone to a chiclet-style keyboard. So the keys are actually separated by a distance. Here, let me hold one up. So the keys are actually separated. This actually improves your typing performance, and we'll talk about that in a second. We've also changed the mechanism. So before, the keys on Surface Pro 3's type cover used a scissor mechanism. We've changed the mechanism to a more of a plunger mechanism. This makes it quieter and improves the snap ratio, which we'll talk about in a second. On top of all of that, we were also able to make it thinner. It's now the thinnest type cover that we've made yet. The trackpad, because we switched to a chiclet-style keyboard, we were able to make the trackpad even bigger. So we're now 40% larger than the Surface Pro 3 trackpad. And we've changed the material to a glass material. This has two results. One, it's more rigid so that you feel confident when you're right-clicking or left-clicking. It doesn't feel mushy. And two, it feels silky smooth like glass. So it's really dramatically improved. I'll go ahead and pass this around so you can have a feel for it. All right, so by separating the keys and having a space between them, your brain actually is able to type faster because it knows better where the keys are. When there's no spacing, you start to wonder, am I typing, pressing the keys in the right place? Once there's a separation, you're able to type much faster. The trackpad has been improved by making it larger. I told you about the glass surface. We've also made it higher resolution. So you will feel more control over your mouse with this trackpad than ever before. We also support, question?
Does that palm detection? So I find on a lot of laptops, not Surface ones, I find that I'll be typing and all of a sudden the mouse jumps.
Absolutely.
Somewhere wrong.
So the question is, does it have palm rejection? And the answer is absolutely. We've actually improved our algorithms for palm rejection over the Surface Pro 3 so that we can actually sense when your palm is and reject palm touch when you're putting your fingers on the keyboard. We also have the fold in the keyboard. I just passed my keyboard around, so I can't show it to you, but the attachment that attaches to the bottom of the display. So if this is my Surface Pro 4, there's a magnet here in the bottom that the keyboard folds up into. This allows you to choose between an angled keyboard or a flat keyboard. So you can work the way you want. The other benefit to the type cover, of course, is when you fold it closed, it protects your screen. And finally, it comes in multiple colors so that you can make it your own. You can choose the color you want. I know that the bright blue keyboard is one of the most popular. We have trouble keeping that one in stock. Question in the back?
Does it offer any protection against liquid spills on it?
I would say it offers, so the question is, does it offer any protection against liquid spills? I would say when you have it closed, there might be some protection, but we're not going to say it's spill proof.
The keyboard itself, if it's open,
Uh-huh.
it's glass on it.
Yeah, if you spill liquid in it, it's probably not going to be a great situation. The beauty of it is, though, you haven't destroyed your entire laptop. You just have to replace the type cover if you spill on it. But I have heard anecdotally some folks who have spilled and it's recovered after they put it in rice. You cannot put it through the washing machine. It is not waterproof. All right, let's talk even more about those chiclet keys. So by adding the space between the keys, we've been able to improve that tactile discoverability so that when you put your fingers down, you feel more confident in your typing and you can type faster. We've also improved the snap ratio. That's how fast the key comes back up when you press it. That actually is what gives you the improved feel. It makes it feel more like a full-size keyboard. But we also increased the travel to 1.3 millimeters, so we now have, it feels more like it's actually going down and not just like mushy like the way Surface Pro 3 keyboard was. We've also been able to improve the stiffness of the keyboard. So stiffness is very important in lapability because that gives you the stability so it doesn't feel like it's wobbly on your lap or feel like it's going to fall off. And the beauty of it is that by switching to chiclet keys, we've been able to add additional stiffness factors here, stability. So I'm going to pass this around. It's a cutout of the keyboard. So here's the keyboard, and it's been cut open. So it's very fragile. So just handle it carefully. But what I want you to notice is that there are, okay, this is the picture this way, like this, of the bottom, okay? And I want you to notice on this part, the keys part, these black dots. Now some of them have fallen out in the process of cutting them, or they don't show up in the picture. But all of these black dots are actually stability points. We call them heat stakes. So when the keyboard is manufactured, there's a little resin that's put in there that gets heated up and then binds the top and bottom all throughout the keyboard. Now with Surface Pro 3, we weren't able to do that. The keys were all touching each other and there was no space to do that. So it was pretty flimsy. But with all these additional heat stakes, we've really been able to increase the stiffness. So I'll pass this around so you can have a look at the inside of the keyboard. Question? What is the keyboard actually made of? It's made of resins, different kinds of plastics and resins. Mm-hmm. Is there any metal inside it?
You'll see it when it comes around.
Yeah, there is some metal, you'll see. You'll see there's a kind of a honeycomb of plastic resins in the the front part where you rest your palms. And it's a crisscross pattern that adds additional stiffness. Yeah, actually, you can see it right up there. Yes, yes. It's in question?
We got some of the new top covers for a Surface Pro 3, but there seems to be an issue with the Surface 3 docks where if you try to put it on the angle, it doesn't quite connect with the magnets the same way. Is that a known?
Right, so the question is, when I connect my Surface Pro 3 device to the docking station, my type cover tends to kind of get in the way.
Yeah, on the new type cover, it doesn't quite connect the magnets the same way with the type cover for 3.
Okay, so the comment is the new type cover 4, doesn't quite connect on Surface Pro 3 to the same place. And that is true. What's going on is Surface Pro 4 has a bigger screen. It's a 12.3-inch screen versus the 12-inch screen. That means the bezel at the bottom is even narrower. So the fold on type cover 4 is even smaller. But it's been engineered so that the magnets still line up on Surface Pro 3, so it will still be backwards compatible with Surface Pro 3. But I would always recommend when you put Surface Pro 3 into that docking station that we used to have, that you have the type cover loose when you put it in, because otherwise the little flaps can get into the mechanism. Now there was a couple of other questions. Did we answer them? Okay. So I've mentioned it already, but the type cover is backward compatible with Surface Pro 3. In fact, it has the exact same spine interface that the Surface Pro 3 type cover had. We've also optimized the magnets, this is what we were just talking about, so that it fits both Surface Pro 3 and Surface Pro 4. We also support the same magnets that allow the device to recognize when the keyboard is closed so that it can go to sleep. And the biometric fingerprint reader in type cover 4 is also supported on Surface Pro 3. A couple of other things that we've added is we've added print screen and insert keys. We've also added the right-click context menu button, or the hamburger button, some people refer it to as. And we've also added volume controls at the top. Of course, this keyboard doesn't have it. The new keyboard does. Okay, the larger trackpad. So by switching to chiclet keys, that gave us more space to increase the size of the trackpad. The trackpad is now aligned with the center of the type cover instead of aligned with the space bar. If you look at the trackpad on, I don't know what will happen to this one if I do this, but this is the old keyboard that's on the Podium device. You can see that the trackpad was not centered. It was actually based on the space bar rather than centered on the device. So it was always a little bit confusing to align your hands because it was off center. So we've been able to center that. We've also, as I mentioned before, improved the prevention of accidental activation. That's the palm rejection capability. And we've added glass for a consistent click performance across the entire surface, so you feel like it's not mushy when you're doing right click and left click. And it also feels nice. And for those that are product spec geeks and want to know the thickness and the weight, there it is, 4.9 millimeters thick, and the weight is 310 grams. And we also continue to have the backlit keys. Now, a couple of interesting tidbits about the type cover. The only thing that's in common with type cover 4 and this older type cover from Surface Pro 3 days is the spine. This part here that actually connects to the bottom of the device, which of course has to stay the same in order to be compatible. That's the only thing that did not change. Everything else in the construction, material, engineering, design, everything completely changed in the actual keyboard itself between Surface Pro 3 and Surface Pro 4. The keys actually come into the factory all separated and are assembled one by one because we have to add those heat stakes during that process to make it stiffer. The production line is actually fully automated. It uses cameras and lasers to align things at an accuracy of 0.05 of a millimeter. So it's very, very accurate. And we actually had to work with some of the injection molding teams to come up with slight changes to their formulas in terms of the resins that are used, which caused a little consternation from people who are used to just doing injection molding and not having to worry about changing their formulas. But we were able to do that. All right, so of course, these are all theoretical things. We've done all this design and engineering to make the keyboard better, but did it actually turn out to be better? So we brought in some people, we did some tests. So first of all, we tested Surface Pro 4's type cover with Surface Pro 3. And in a blind test, and our user experience experts are really good at creating blind tests, our study users, and there were 27 people that were brought in from an external, so these are not Microsoft employees, they're from outside Microsoft that are brought in, and they ranked the Surface Pro 4 type cover over the Surface Pro 3 type cover on keyboard and trackpad feel. They also did touch typing testing, and the Surface Pro 4 type cover was faster and more accurate than the type cover. We also did some trackpad tests, and the Surface Pro 4 type cover was more responsive and better at preventing accidental mouse movements than Surface Pro 3. But we didn't just stop there. We also compared it to other laptops that are out there with keyboards. And in a blind test, the users preferred Surface Pro 4's keyboard in overall keyboard feel to the MacBook Air's keyboard and to the Surface Pro 3's keyboard. So Surface Pro 4 was first. And in overall trackpad feel, users preferred Surface Pro 4 to the Surface Pro 3 and the MacBook Air. We also did some typing speed studies, as well as some typing accuracy studies. And it looks like somebody changed my slides when I uploaded them last night, and they no longer have labels underneath the pictures, but I think it's probably fairly self-explanatory. The left side is the MacBook, then the Surface Pro 3, then the Surface Pro 4, and then the MacBook Air, and I think. So you can see they're pretty much on par, 59.9 and 60.7 words per minute. And then in terms of typing accuracy, very close as well, with the MacBook just slightly more. Of course, it's a full laptop, so you would certainly assume that its typing experience would be on par. So we've really, really made a lot of headway in improving the typing experience with this keyboard. Okay, last but certainly not least in terms of the keyboard is the keyboard with fingerprint reader. Now, I'm sure you all saw at the announcement when we had the video at the bottom, or the video I just played, or a number of people have already asked me, what about the fingerprint reader in Australia? So I can tell you that the reason why the fingerprint reader was sold in the US only was because we just did not know how successful it would be. We knew that a lot of people had experienced fingerprint readers from the past, where you had to swipe your finger a dozen times and then you just gave up and typed in your password because it was faster to do that than to get the thing to read. So we weren't really sure. So they did a limited run on the type cover with fingerprint reader. We did it in US only, and we immediately sold out on all the ones that we made. So we are now going back, ordering more parts. We'll have more devices made, and I'm working very hard to bring that to Australia. The product marketing manager for the type cover is from Australia, and so together we are conspiring to make sure Australia is at the top of the list to get the type cover with fingerprint reader. But you can say that we did bring the type cover with fingerprint reader to Australia. We just have a supply of one, which I will be raffling off at the end of the day. Yes? So the fingerprint reader does only work with Windows 10. So that's a great point. My next slide will delve into that just a little bit. But let me just go through this real quickly. Fingerprint readers obviously give you a secure and convenient login. This is a camera-based technology. It is, according to my engineers, it is faster than Apple's Touch ID camera, and it's far more accurate. So I might as well go to this slide because I felt like any time you mention fingerprint reader or any kind of biometric, I should at least talk about Windows Hello a little bit, even though it's really kind of outside the scope of my talk. But I want you to understand that Windows Hello is this umbrella technology inside Windows 10 that enables biometrics. And facial recognition, iris recognition, and fingerprint recognition are all part of that umbrella. And in order for any of these technologies to be part of Windows Hello, they have to be better than a false positive of 1 in 100,000. So they're very accurate. The other thing to know about our fingerprint reader, and I'll just go back one. The other thing to know about this is it also has a false negative rate of better than 1 out of 100. It's actually 0.75%. So that means every 100 or more, maybe more like 125 times that you put your finger on it, it might not quite read your finger and you'll have to do it again. But only 1 out of about 125 times will that happen. So it's very, very good at reading your fingerprint, and it's very fast. All right, and last question.
In what situation would you use the fingerprint reader over the iris or facial recognition?
Great question. So the question is, in what situation would you use the fingerprint reader instead of the facial recognition? If you had a Surface Pro 3, the fingerprint reader is the only way to get Windows Hello. So if you had a Surface Pro 3, that'd be one place. A lot of IT organizations are going to be very comfortable with fingerprint. Fingerprint reading has been around for a while, so they will be comfortable with the idea of using fingerprint. However, some IT organizations are probably not going to be comfortable with facial recognition, even though it has a very similar failure rate. They're just not used to them, so it's new to them. So I would say they might turn it off in policy, but reasonably, there's really no reason to differentiate between them. They're all at least 1 out of 100,000 false positives. So I would say with Surface Pro 4, the facial recognition is a great way to go. There was one more thing I wanted to say, and I don't remember what it is now, so I'm just going to continue. So we polled customers who bought Surface Pro 4, who pre-order Surface Pro 4, and we asked them to rank a lot of different things in terms of how excited they were about them. And the number one thing that they said was the improvements to the type cover. And I can tell you anecdotally, I've been traveling around Australia for the last 4 weeks, meeting with customers and talking to partners. And when I put this keyboard down in front of people who are true typists, who are used to using the old keyboard, I literally have to yank it back from them because they love this new keyboard, and I think you will too. The other thing to note, though, is that the number 2 thing on this list is improvements to the pen. So let's talk about the pen.
Let it out and lose control. Taking over like we do. Like tick, tick, boom. Like bang, bang, bang. Yeah, because we're all ready to explode. Because we're all ready to explode.
Also, we've done a lot of things with the pen, but a few things stay the same. Click to OneNote. We still have click to OneNote. We have double click for screen capture, just like we did with Surface Pro 3, but we've also added a new feature, which is click to hold for Cortana. And now that Australia has Cortana, it will work for you as well. Click, hold in the eraser tip, and it's as if you said, hey, Cortana. We also moved the eraser button to the eraser. So one of the biggest complaints on the Surface Pro 3 pen was one of those 2 buttons was way too easy to press. It was big, and you couldn't really hold the pen without accidentally hitting that button, and so you were erasing half the things that you were writing. So we went back and we designed a new pen that has the eraser where the eraser should go. So you can write turn it around, rub it out, and then turn it around and write just like you would with a pen. We also added some optional pen tips. I have a much bigger picture of this in a second, so I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And we also, probably the number one complaint that people have with the pen in Surface Pro 3 is, first of all, they hate the pen loop. And I can tell you that our designers also hate the pen loop. They think it breaks the overall experience. So we went back to the drawing board and we came up with a magnetic attach. So we now have magnets in the pen, and I have a blow up of the pen in a second where you'll see the magnets. And we also have magnets in the side of Surface Pro 4. We do not have magnets in the side of Surface Pro 3, despite the fact that I have seen people who have attached their pen over here. It just coincidentally kind of sticks over here because there are magnets for the power port, but that was just sort of accidental. This is where it's purposely put, and it's a much stronger magnet over here. So the pen cannot fall off unless you peel it off. So it's a very strong connection. All right, a couple of other things that we did. Let's geek out a little more. We increased the levels of pressure from 256 back up to 1024. So we now support the full 1024 levels of pressure. The other thing we did is we actually had a lot of calls from people that said their pen wasn't working when they got Surface Pro 3. Now, we hid the battery underneath the instruction manual, and no one reads the instruction manual, so no one lifted the instruction manual to find the battery was back there. So this time around, we have the battery pre-installed. So out of the box, Surface Pro 4, Surface Book, the pen will have the battery pre-installed, ready to go. Now, you might ask, well, what if they're sitting on the shelf for a year and the battery's in there? Won't that run down the battery? The answer is no. We now have an accelerometer that we detect when the pen is in motion and being used, and that's when the battery is engaged. And if the pen is not being used, the battery isn't engaged. So that battery will actually sit on the shelf for much longer than with Surface Pro 3. We also have best-in-class latency, parallax, and palm rejection. Now, if you were in my talk the other day, I talked about how we've moved to Gorilla Glass 4 in Surface Pro 4 and Surface Book. That allows us to have a much thinner plate of glass, so that reduces that parallax, which is the distance between where you're writing and where you see it show up, to be almost nil. So it's a very smooth pen experience. It feels like where you're writing is where you're writing. The other is the latency, and that's how long it takes to catch up to the pen. It used to be with pens from ages ago, you wrote like this and then you waited for it to catch up, and now it's exactly in line with, you can't even detect latency. We've reduced it so much that it feels exactly like a pen. And we've also improved palm rejection. Occasionally with Surface Pro 3, when you were writing on it, it was pretty good at detecting your palm and rejecting your palm so that you weren't moving the paper around while you were writing, but occasionally it would get something messed up. Surface Pro 4 dramatically improved. You won't experience that feeling where your palm is actually moving material on the screen in both Book and Surface Pro 4. The other thing is, and you'll see in a minute, I have a cutaway that I'm going to pass around, and I have it blown up on the screen. There's quite a bit of printed circuit board in here. There is the Bluetooth module, there's the writing module, so there's actually firmware in the pen. So we needed a way to be able to upgrade that firmware if we ever needed to. So we support an over-the-air Bluetooth firmware upgrade that's invisible to the user. The other thing we've done is Surface Pro 3 had a rated battery life of 12 months. The new pen, because we can turn off the battery when we're not in use, we're rating it out. It's going to last about a year and a half. So about an 18-month battery life in the pen.
What's that rating on? Like 2 hours a day?
So what is that? So the question is, how many times a day, how much a day did we use?
2 hours a day.
And that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that.
And the battery's not replaceable?
The battery is replaceable, yes. I'll get to that in a second. It's a quadruple A battery. The other thing we did is that we came up with some additional pen tips. So we had a lot of feedback. You know, one of the things that we do is we hear feedback all the time. We want to hear your feedback. We want to know what can we do better? How can we seek perfection? What will make things better? And one of the things that we heard was the pen nib just doesn't feel right. And we started to find that there's a little bit of polarity there. There are some people that really like certain pen tips and some people that like other pen tips. And it's kind of like when you go to the store and you buy a disposable pen and they've got fine point and medium point pens. And some of you probably like writing with fine point pens. And some of you can't stand fine point pens and want to write with medium point pens, etc. So we've actually come up with a nib kit that you can actually go and do that. And we've tried to mimic that feel of the different kinds of pen tips that you can buy. We've also thrown in a couple of other ones for artists, like this larger one. It feels more like a big magic marker. These are really more geared towards the artists who really want to have a better feel for what they're doing when they're sketching. But quite a few of you are sketchers, and this will probably be something that you enjoy as well. Question?
What's the default tip that comes with the pen?
The default tip that comes with the pen, honestly, it's one of those, it's either B or HB. I don't actually know which one it is because I know it has a little bit of gray on it, so it's definitely one of those two. But I'm not sure which one it is actually. But if you pull out the nib and look at the back of it, it has a color. It's color-coded. And I should have done that, but I have. It will help you tell which one it goes in. So all of these are color-coded to get them back in the right position.
And to replace them, you just pull out the nib.
So this is actually also, and this is gigantic. I have a little kit that I didn't get out, but it's very small. This is a nib puller, essentially. So you slide this over and you pull the nib out.
You slide in those slots.
Yes, exactly. So it helps you pull, it's like a tweezer. Pull the nib out. All right. So I said I was going to talk a little bit about the battery. So here's the slide that has the battery. We have the front of the pen, we have the middle of the pen, which is where the quadruple A battery sits, and we have the tail of the pen. Now, if any of you ever opened up your Surface Pro 3 pen or have started to feel like the battery is running low on the Surface Pro 3 pen and then you started to go into it to figure out how do I replace the batteries, you may have discovered that the Surface Pro 3 pen actually has 3 batteries. It has a quadruple A battery in the barrel of the pen. That battery is what's used for the writing. And every pen works on all Surface Pro 3s, Surface 3s as well, alike, based on that quadruple A battery in the barrel. It's the cap of the pen in Surface Pro 3 that's Bluetooth paired. And there were 2 button-style batteries in the cap of the pen that ran the Bluetooth. And if you were doing, like if you were in a school or in a situation where you're doing lots of pairing, wiping a device and pairing, those button batteries didn't last for about 20 pairings before they would start to die. So what we've done is we've completely eliminated those 2 button batteries, and now we're using a single quadruple A battery. Now, this was not an easy thing to do because we needed a connection between in order to power it, we needed a connection between the battery and the pen cap. So we couldn't use that screw-on mechanism that Surface Pro 3 uses. So Surface Pro 4 pen actually has a twist mechanism, which you twist it, and then it comes out. Yes, there we go. So you can see there's a little guide so you get the battery in correctly. Here's the quadruple A battery. And there are little leads on the side here that go in so that when you put it in, and again, let's all ask the demo gods to behave. You can pull this little guide off, but then when it comes time to replace your battery, you might have to do it twice to get the battery in. And I think I'm just going to leave this loose for right now and continue on. It's fortunately not something you have to do very often. I was going to pass that around. It's really easier than I made it look. All right, so let's really geek out on the pen, and I'm going to pass around. This is a cutout, so it's embedded in acrylic, You can see on this side that it's a pen, and we'll pass it around because probably the people in the back are saying, what is he looking at? And then it's a completely shaved, and now I have some blow-up pictures up here. So I'm going to pass that around so you can have a really close look at it, but we'll talk about it up here. So, wish I had a laser pointer. This thing looks like it might have a laser pointer, but there. All right. So this is the nib right here. And this is a printed circuit board that's on its side. So you can see little pieces of the printed circuit board in here. This is the part that does the pressure sensitivity and signals and sends that signal to the digitizer. This cutout right here, this chunk right here, is the magnet. It's one of the two magnets. And this button here goes all the way up the spine. Now, one thing I want to make sure everyone understands is one of the complaints about Surface Pro 3's pen was that it was too easy to accidentally press that button. With Surface Pro 4's button, it's there when you know and you want it. You can find it really easily because it's on that side part. But if you're somebody who doesn't use the button, it's very easy to not press the button. There's a whole part of the pen that you can hold on to and never press that button. So it kind of fades away when you're not using the button, but it's there when you need it if you're somebody who uses that lasso and wants to press the button. And I want to pass this pen around, but I can't get it back together. All right. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'll pass it around in pieces, and somebody over here at the end will put it back together for me. Actually, it's cool to pass around in terms of the pieces. All right, so we're moving up the pen. So this is the actual button here that you press that I just talked about. These are the magnets. This is the PCB board. And now here is the barrel where the quadruple A battery sits. Now, I've actually had a couple of people ask me, well, where do you buy quadruple A batteries? Anybody have any trouble finding quadruple A batteries? Officeworks. I saw them on the shelf at Officeworks. I can swear to you it was a quadruple A battery on the shelf at Officeworks. So I have seen them in Australia. They do exist. All right, let's move to the tail of the pen. So once again, this is where the battery is, and now this is the Bluetooth module. That is a Bluetooth LE module that controls the click to Cortana, the hold for Cortana, the double click to take a screenshot, and the single click to open up OneNote, right? The click to OneNote. So that's what's going on here. But how did we move the eraser to where the eraser goes? This was one of the biggest challenges, actually. So the way that this works is it only requires a very small amount of force to actuate the eraser button. So as that goes around, you can feel it. There's a slight detente in there as you start to press the eraser. It's so easy to press that when you put it down and erase with it, it's pressing that eraser button. But you're not putting enough force on it to actually push through and push to the next button. So there's a range in there of force where the eraser is activated, but the other button isn't. And that was what we had to iterate on to get the right feel so that it feels like an eraser, but also pushes a button. And by the way, I've actually seen in some of the usability studies when we were doing with the eraser that when someone would turn it around and rub something out, they would actually move their hands to wipe away the eraser marks. It feels that much like a real eraser. And then this is the other of the two magnets that are in the pen that attach to the side of Surface Pro 4 and Surface Book. Okay. So now let's switch gears and talk about the docking station. So we definitely have heard a lot of feedback on the Surface Pro 3 docking station. We heard some feedback even this morning. The type cover gets in the way of the experience when you put in your device. Sometimes the little folds on the type cover make it hard to put it in the docking station. Other feedback we got on the docking station was, you're at a fixed angle and I don't like that angle. I can't see the screen, there's glare on the screen, I can't write on the screen. I want to control the angle at which my device sits at. The other thing is, it doesn't give me enough power. How many of you bought Core i7 Surface Pro 3s? If you're really juicing that device, putting it through its paces, playing a CPU-intensive game or something like that, you may have noticed that maybe it wasn't charging during that time. And you're like, why is that? It's because there wasn't enough juice being fed to it, and the Surface Pro 3 docking station was underpowered in those cases. So we also heard that. We also heard that it takes up a lot of room on my desk, and it just kind of, and some people thought it was ugly. So we took a lot of that feedback, and we came up with a new versatile docking solution. So this is the new docking station right here. I have the power supply here. So the power supply, which would be sitting on the floor, see up there, that's the floor. It's also about the same size. See, it's almost exactly the same size as the dock. And yes, it is about half the weight. We'll get to that in a second. So this is, I'm not going to pass this around. I don't think you want to see the power adapter, right? That's kind of boring.
One question about the power adapter.
Question about the power adapter.
Is it both 110 and 240 volt rated?
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. It is, in fact, I plugged it in just to be sure, and it worked.
It didn't go poof.
It did not go poof. So yes, the answer to the question is, you can use dual voltage for the docking station. We aren't shipping multiple different versions of the power supply for the docking station. So here it is. I'm going to pass this around. As you get it, you will feel that it is actually very heavy, and I'll talk about that in a second. But basically, the idea is that we want this to stay put on your desk. We don't want it to fall off your desk, so that's why it's weighted.
Just with that, is the 3.5 mil jack, does that support the chip ring for microphone as well, or is it just audio output? So if you plug up
I
a phone device, a mobile phone device,
believe it's just audio out. I don't think it has a microphone tip in it. I am not 100% certain of that. Other people that I know in the back are shaking their heads no, so I think it does not support the headset. It's a good question. I will bring that feedback back. So let's continue. One of the other pieces of feedback that we heard from Surface Pro 3 docking station users was, why do you only have one DisplayPort out? Why do you make us go through DisplayPort daisy chaining hell? We heard that feedback, believe me. And we now have 2 mini DisplayPort outs on the docking station. That means we actually have an MST hub built into the docking station that does split out the DisplayPort 1.2 signal. So while the docking station is supported on Surface Pro 3, Surface Pro 4, and Surface Book. So a couple of other things. One single connection is all you need to dock its power, data, and video. You can use your Surface Pro in any position while it's docked. It has gigabit Ethernet, and by the way, there's 4 now USB 3 ports, no USB 2 ports at all. It's 4 USB 3 ports. Question in the back.
So if you connect a couple of devices on the USB 3, you've got your gigabit Ethernet, you've got 2 high-res display ports going. Is there enough throughput and bandwidth with that one port so you don't have lag on your screens, etc.? Because that's normally the problem with external.
Correct. So the question is there going to be lag on the screens when you have multiple screens connected and you're using the USB ports? And the answer is no. And the reason is we're not using Display Link. Display Link is that technology that display goes over USB. And if you're using those Targus workstations, which I know a lot of you in the room are using, those are the least common denominator. You're going to get, I don't want to, on recording, disparage those devices because there are certainly scenarios where you need to use them. I know you have activity-based workstations and you have to use those. I completely understand that. These do not suffer from any of those problems. These are direct lines from the chips, DP ports. There's no sharing of the resource amongst the USB ports. So you won't have that problem with this.
You said you can use that with the Surface Book as well. So where
Yes.
does it connect onto the Surface Book?
Great question. So the question is, can you use this with the Surface Book? Where do you connect it to? The answer is either place, actually. You can connect the docking solution to the base of the Surface Book. So when you're in full laptop mode, you can be using the docking station. You can also detach the clipboard and attach the docking station to the clipboard and then have full access to the docking solution from the clipboard. That middle connector on the clipboard is a full Surface Connect connector.
Any plans for USB-C dock?
Great question. Any plans for a USB-C dock? I'm sure we're thinking about it. The thing is, when we looked at the market, and it is a bit of a chicken and egg problem, right? Some other manufacturers chose to go to USB-C exclusively, and I think they got a little bit of backlash from that because there was nothing out there yet. When we polled our enterprise customers, everybody is predominantly using USB 3 today, so we didn't want to yank that away in one fell swoop. We just didn't feel like it was quite time yet to go to USB-C, but we're certainly considering it. Our engineers love USB-C. It's great to be able to plug in either way. It's faster. We'll get there. It's just there's so much out there with the regular USB port. We just didn't want to disenfranchise our users. Any chance we'll get an SD card reader? That's the question. There is an SD card reader in Surface Pro 4. It's a micro SD card reader. You may not have noticed it because it is hidden behind the kickstand. Right over here. It looks kind of like a SIM slot, but it's not. It's a micro SD card slot. And then the Surface Book has a full-size SD card. All right. So I said we're compatible with Surface Pro 3, Surface Pro 4, and Surface Book. We have 2 mini DisplayPort outs, 4 USB 3 ports, and we have 90 watts of power to the docking station. 30 of those watts stay in the docking station to power things like the USB ports. A full 60 watts comes to the display, comes to the device during charging. And this maximizes your freedom and productivity. You can put it in any position. You can put it in canvas mode and write on it. You can position it anywhere on your desk. The dock itself was designed to sit quietly at the back of your desk and sort of fade into the background. We even didn't want these to be blue because we wanted there to be no distractions. We wanted it to be in the background, faded away, as small as possible without falling off your desk. Now, I'm sure many of you might not believe this, but it is actually true. We have spent 2 years working with different vendors trying to find a cable that has the stiffness that we're looking for, that isn't too stiff and feel really hard to pull out and attach, but isn't too loosey-goosey to not give us the impedance and resistance and level of confidence in the signal strength across the cable. So it took us quite a long time to find a vendor that could supply what we were looking for. It takes over 60 operators on the assembly line to manufacture and assemble a single cable. And this is just the cable between the Surf Connect and the dock. There are 46 components in the connector of Surface Connect, and this is a cutaway of that. So this is actually from the Surface Book, and this is the connector that comes in, and you can see all the little components that fit into this position to pull that into the exact right place for the pins to line up. It's a precision piece of equipment. And then it provides 60 watts of power, more than ample to fully charge your devices under the highest of CPU loads, including, and I tested it with the engineers before I left Redmond, including Surface Pro 3 i7. And this is a cutaway view of the docking station. I think the main things here are we went to a 12-layer printed circuit board in order to really make this as small as we could. We also added weights, so 415 grams total. That's almost a pound of weight for those of us who are not in the metric system. I know what a pound feels like. I'm still getting used to a kilogram, even though I certainly learned it growing up. But the reason why we added weights, and as it's going around, you're going to feel like, wow, I'd love to carry this around in my bag, but it is heavy. And it was designed to sit on your table. If you have feedback and you'd love to see us do a travel doc, let us know. We'd love to hear that feedback downstairs, or any of us. I definitely want to hear from you. But for this, we added weight so that it would sit on your desk. We also used a low durometer rubber. Now, does anybody know what this means? I had to look it up. It means it's very soft. It's a very soft rubber. So we've went with a very soft rubber pad to ensure that the device will stay on your desk and not get tugged off. We spent a lot of time with different kinds of rubber because we wanted it to not collect dust. So some rubbers will actually start to attract dust over, and you'll get this little dust bunny that collects. And the designers definitely do not want dust bunnies sitting beside our docks. And we also use a 20-watt laser for all the agency markings. If you turn the docking station over, you'll see there's all those markings that we have to put on there. And we're actually using a laser to finally etch that onto that rubber. We also do, a number of people have asked me in my sessions as well as downstairs about the durability testing we do. We do lots and lots of durability testing, and the docking station is no exception. We definitely wanted it to be able to fall off your desk on those occasions when you accidentally bump it off, and not have it be just broken immediately. So it's a solid device.
What's the RRP?
What is the RRP? I'm sorry. What is the MSRP?
MSRP.
So I honestly don't know what the Australian dollar MSRP. $300. $299 is what I'm hearing, Aussie dollars. Does that include GST?
Yes.
Okay.
With Ryan, yes. Victoria, yes.
Okay. All right, from now on, people who ask questions, everybody who asks a question can come up and choose from the supply of goodies up here. And then when we're done answering questions and the session is over, we will draw names for the type covers. So the gentleman in the green shirt asked the first question.
I've got two questions. The first one is, you're saying that this is a laptop replacement, but how come the keyboard is optional? That's the first question. Second question is, can you put in an LTE card? Does it support LTE on this Surface Pro 4?
Okay, those are gnarly questions. I'm glad you saved them for the end. And you definitely deserve to take one of these for those gnarly questions. So let me tackle them one at a time. The first question was, we say this is a laptop replacement, but the type cover is sold separately. And so, first of all, kind of outside the scope of this talk, you're talking about Surface Pro 4, but I'm a Surface Black Belt, and I will answer it. Surface actually is a tablet that can replace your laptop. Most people who buy Surface use it as a tablet. But if you want to use it to replace your laptop, you're going to want to customize and get the cover that matches your personality. You might want the bright blue cover. You might want the red cover. And if we bundled those all together, it would be a nightmare for our retailers. So that's why the type cover is sold separately. It's so that you can go choose the type cover in the color that you want and in the keyboard layout that you need. The other question was about LTE, and I don't. Okay, so let me tackle that question head on. I did answer it on Wednesday, but I'll go ahead and answer it again. So putting 4G, it's not a matter of we just decided that the United States has Wi-Fi everywhere. Why do we need LTE? You guys are behind the times. It's nothing like that. I've heard some mythology out there that we've got some sort of conspiracy around that. It's totally not true. There is actually some engineering challenges to putting LTE in such a thin device. We're using magnesium, we're using metal, and we actually start with a big chunk of magnesium, and we whittle it all out and remove it, and we end up with essentially a Faraday cage. If you're a science geek, you know that your signals can't get out of that metal cage. They're all stuck in there. If you look at the top of a Surface Pro 3 device, and this one's kind of attached to a bunch of stuff, if you look at the top here, you can see there's actually a slight shift in material up here at the top. This is where the Wi-Fi antenna is, because Wi-Fi also gets stuck inside metal, but Wi-Fi is pretty darn important. So we have this little strip up here at the top, and the Wi-Fi antenna is up here. So Wi-Fi gets through because of this material that's up here lets it through. But Wi-Fi is a much higher frequency. So if you're talking about 4G, it's more sensitive to EM noise. And the other thing that our devices have, until recently, is a fan. And when you have a fan spinning up and all that metal inside, and it's just impossible to get a great signal. And we don't want to just tick the box. I mean, certainly there are devices out there that you can go buy that have 4G in them that are adequate, that mostly have just ticked the box and say, yeah, we have 4G. But none of them are going to get that 600 megabits per second speed that is the theoretical maximum that Telstra is pushing out there. When we put LTE in our devices, we want to be able to say it's an awesome experience. Your battery isn't going to go flat in nothing flat. So that's the reason why we don't have LTE, but I would say look forward. We certainly are working on those engineering challenges. We've removed the fan from the Core M version of Surface Pro 4, so we're making strides towards solving some of those engineering challenges, and since we're super thin, we're not able to move modules around. But there's not a lot of room. I don't have pictures on here, so I don't know what I'm pointing at, but there's not a lot of room inside to put an LTE module in just any spot, and so that's one of the challenges. So long-winded answer to your question. Now come up and choose something. So Apple is using an ARM device, and they've added plastic, and they don't have a fan. All right? All right, so I'm going to start up front and move back. So gentlemen in the...
Okay, we talked about compatibility for the cover and the dock. Pen?
The pen is compatible. The only thing to note is that the 1,024 levels of pressure comes from the marriage of what we call pixel sense. It's the marriage of the pen and the... Right, so it goes back to 256 levels of pressure on Surface Pro 3. But other than that, of course, the parallax improvement also has to do with this screen. And but the pen works beautifully on both devices. The Clicker Cortana and the Racer and all those things work just fine. Okay. So choose yourself.
What is the audio jack on the back of the dock?
Didn't you ask that question before? It's a valid question. Why is the audio jack on the back and not on the front? He's so upset about it, he asked me again. But the same answer is, I honestly don't know. I'm sure that the designers and the engineers kind of went back and forth on where that should be, and they probably ended up on people's speakers as the main thing that people are going to attach, rather than headsets. So they probably just went kind of more towards speakers rather than headsets. That'd be my answer. Go ahead. I'm going to work my way forward, so I appreciate comments yelled out, but I'm going to...
Back to the dock, the display ports, do they support 4K?
So, good question. So the question is, do the display ports support 4K? So 4K is an interesting term. We in the United States include UHD in the term 4K, even though technically it's a 3 instead of a 4 at the beginning of the resolution. So in terms of UHD screens, we can support 2 of those at 30 hertz. 4K, we do support 1 4K out. Now, I will say that there is a lot of things going on right now in terms of working with Intel, working with the drivers to improve our display capabilities. And there are some things that may come out as we improve our drivers that improve that, but right now that's what I'm going to tell you. He had a question.
With the display dock, does the display port on the Surface still work as well, so you can run triples?
On the Surface Pro 4, yes. Now, you can run triple screen, but then you'd have to turn off the Surface screen, so.
And what about the mouse, the Surface mouse? Is there anything?
Oh, the Surface mouse. The ArcTouch mouse? I don't know anything about any changes in the mouse going forward. This is kind of like behind the scenes, you know, open up the scenes. We kind of treat the mouse accessories a little different from these accessories. These accessories are tied to Surface, like the pen. You can't use the pen without a Surface. You can't use the type cover without a Surface. You can't use a docking station. But a mouse is kind of general. You can use it with any Bluetooth. So we actually separate those two, and there's a little bit of a wall. I don't really know what's going on that side of the wall. So let's go to the next row questions. Next row.
So you talked about the type cover being compatible, backward compatible with 3.
Uh-huh.
What sort of design considerations did you miss by not being able to make it better as far as the connector goes, I suppose? Like going forward,
Mm-hmm.
the way you spoke, it's almost like the next version, we will bring out all these changes with the connector because we couldn't do it to be backward compatible.
I don't want to lead you to believe that we will be changing that connector.
I'm not trying to...
How much time do I have? The door just opened in the back, so I'm wondering how am I doing on time? There's no clock in here to tell me how I'm doing. It's 11:20 and I'm supposed to go to 11:30, right?
9 minutes.
So we have plenty of time. 9 minutes. So I don't want to give the impression that we're going to be changing that interface, but that interface goes back to the very first Surface. So we've gone through, 7 devices, give or take? And we've used that same connector. At some point in time, there's probably going to be something we want to do. Let's just say, for example, if we wanted to put LTE in the type cover. That speed between the type cover needs to be more than keyboard and mouse speed. It suddenly needs to be faster. So at some point in time, we're probably going to have to figure out how to make that faster. And that might mean changing it, or it might mean adding a few extra things on there that, I don't know. I mean, but
It was a design discussion, so that's why I'm asking the question.
yeah. So,
All right, thank you.
there you go. Feel free to take something.
You did touch on spilling liquids on the keyboard previously
Uh-huh.
in a bit. I think the question that I had in specific was sometimes, if you spill coffee or tea or water on a normal laptop keyboard, if you quickly wipe it,
Mhm.
it does no harm. It's kind of a little resilient. So is that saying?
But I'm sure the manufacturer would never tell you that it's waterproof or spill-proof. It just happens that the amount of coffee or tea that you spilled on it was not too much, and you were able to get it off quickly enough that it didn't cause a problem. And that's what I'm trying to tell you is, if you spill just a little bit of coffee or tea in just the right place and you get it off, it probably won't cause a problem. We don't have any kind of metric that we say we meet this IPL different spec in terms of water resistance. So I don't want to stand up and say, yes, you can spill as much coffee as you want, it'll survive. It probably won't. No, yeah, no one has quite figured out how to make it completely spill-proof. Our touch cover was much better at that because it was completely sealed, but it wasn't very popular. So there's always going to be some challenge there.
And in terms of the stains, can you take the stains off? You use some stain removal?
Yes, actually we do have guidelines around sanitation, especially in hospital environments. So we have a whole wiping regimen that we have documented. I don't know it off the top of my head, but there are some things that you can apply to remove things. Alcohol is different things like that. So I'm not going to say what they are because they're okay. Right there.
Sorry, just touching on that. I noticed on the Surface Pro 3 top pad, it does wear out a lot where I rest my hands. Is there anything that you know around the new type cover, whether or not it doesn't wear out? I haven't read one, and I found that from resting my palms and constantly using it, it
Mhm.
seems like it's worn. So I just wonder if there's...
The beauty of it is you can go buy a new one and it'll be brand spanking new. Versus a laptop where you're kind of like, it's always going to be like that. So, I mean, yes, the materials do wear, and people who are using them a lot, it's going to wear faster. Certainly we strive to be as durable as possible. We've certainly improved those things over time. But the beauty of having a separate type cover is that you can go get a brand new one and start all over and be very nice and clean.
I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and I'd like her to do some drawing on the surface because she goes through so much paper.
Uh-huh.
Getting rid of paper.
I would highly encourage it.
But she's like gets frustrated sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Worried that she's gonna break it. Is there any has anyone done some pressure testing on it or anything like that?
So that's a very good point. Our pens are not designed for kids, honestly. So there is a potential for breaking the tips. The beauty now is, though, we do provide additional tips that you can go buy.
Tip will break before the screen?
It depends. If I would be a little bit worried about the screen if your kid is really rough with it. Because if you're stabbing that screen, you're probably going to eventually cause some damage. Yeah.
The part rejection stuff in the keyboard, is that part of, in the trackpad, is that only for Surface 4 or is that Surface 3 or is it part of the keyboard code?
It's part of the driver in the keyboard. So the question is, does the palm rejection work on Surface Pro 3 and Surface Pro 4? And the answer is yes. The keyboard is fully backward compatible. There's nothing in the device that's different. So it's part of the driver and firmware package. We still have some devices up here, some stuff up here for people that are asking questions. Did you have a question?
What about when there was some videos around the type covers and touch covers having DJ type activities on them or
Right.
programmable? Was there any information on that sort of concept?
Good question. I honestly don't know the answer to that. That was led by our consumer marketing team. So the question is around that DJ keyboard that we produced. I don't know what's going on in that arena. Certainly there are smart people putting their heads together to figure out what can we do in that arena. I definitely heard a lot of feedback that was a popular add-on. How are we doing on time? 3 minutes. So I love questions. I'm going to keep answering questions, but let me draw the winners to release some of you who are desperate to get out of here. The first thing I'm going to do is draw the winner of the type cover for Surface Pro 4 that doesn't have the fingerprint reader. So the first one is not the fingerprint reader. So you're essentially the runner-up.
First loser.
Do you want to draw?
Nick O'Connor.
Congratulations. And now the grand prize. The Surface Pro 4 type cover with fingerprint reader. One of the only ones available in Australia at this point. We have a supply of one, and the winner is
Somebody from Queensland going, oh, Dusty Miller.
awesome. Congratulations. So I'll continue answering questions. I think we have a few more minutes. We can probably, 1 more minute. We can go ahead, I think, and close off the actual official program. Remember to stay informed. Go to our Surface Tech Center. Do please complete your evaluations. Please give me ratings, give me feedback, and continue your Ignite learning experience, etc. And I'm going to turn off the mic.